Hi, and welcome back. This is the conclusion of my interview with David Zailer. He is the author of multiple books. He is that include his latest, Death of a Fisherman, and he is also a founder of Operation Integrity. And he joined us again this afternoon from the west coast of California. And thank you so much, David, for joining me today.
Thank you, Martha. It's good to be here. Always nice to see you.
It's a pleasure to see you as well. Just for our audience, we are picking back up. We had some technical difficulties last time, and we've had to wait a couple weeks to have our schedules mesh so that we could finish this. And so I'm really excited to finish this up with David today. And we'll be picking up, we were entering into a conversation about the last few chapters of David's book, Death of a Fisherman. And David, I'm just going to let you just pick it up. You were asking me in particular about the last chapter and the vision. If you'll bring us into that vision and where you wanted to go with that.
Well, I'm not going to tell too much,
right?
Because your viewers, listeners, they'll enjoy it more if they just read it.
True.
But the whole book was written around my trips to Houston, which is my hometown. It's a place where I'm drawn to because it's my hometown, but the memories are complicated, to say it in the most polite way. So I've always had this attraction to go to Houston, but never could really understand why. These particular trips were to Houston was because I was working there. And so every couple of months I would travel there, spend 3 or 4 or 5 days with a team of people. We were working on some content material. My parents are buried in Houston, and I made the decision that I was going to go visit their grave. I didn't know this in the beginning, but as it turned out, I visited their grave every day that I was in town. Every day on every trip, I made it a point to go spend some time at the cemetery. A lot of strange things happened. And the last day that I was in Houston, I was sitting on a bench 40, 50 feet away from where they're buried. And I just had I guess you call it a vision. I don't know what else to call it. But the vision was of my father and my mother, and in many ways, their roles were reversed from what they were here when they were alive. When they were alive, my mother suffered greatly from a variety of ills, mental illness, deep depression. My father, he worked hard to keep his reputation shiny and fresh. In the vision, everything was reversed. And I saw my mother embrace my father, even though he had been the core instigator of her suffering. So I write about that. As I sat there, I just had this vision, and I just kind of observed it in my mind as it played out, not realizing that a year later, I would be writing about it. And when I was making these trips to Houston, I had no intention of writing this book. I may have mentioned it in our previous segment on this, that the whole idea of Death of a Fisherman came from my dear friend Joey O'Connor. One day he says to me, he goes, "Hey, why don't you write a memoir?" And I thought that was just the silliest idea ever. And I had no intention of writing a memoir. But as things turned out, I did. And I wrote about this vision. It's not the end of the book, but it's close. And it was certainly a game changer. I would say it was a God's gift to me to help me continue to move forward in life, and find peace amidst the difficulty I suffered in my family as a child.
And I think the wonderful progression of the book, as I've read it in print and I've heard it on Audible, is the progression of that's so evident of the healing that all of this, the research, the trips to Houston, the constant visiting of your mother's grave, and then you see this sweetness, this shift. And I just think it's beautiful to see, what God did in your life. And it gives the rest of us hope, David, I think, for those fragmented relationships that we have in our journey and in our families. And so thank you for being vulnerable to us as an audience. And I just wanted to say thank you for that. One last thing, and then I have a couple of questions. You had an unanswered email. I won't say who it was with, but for several years. And for those of us who are maybe looking for an apology or an admittance from someone in our family or relationships, no matter who they involve, what word of wisdom might you give us that to help us with those unanswered emails, or that hope of some kind of closure? What did you know? Any words that you could share with us today?
Well, I hope my thoughts will be helpful. Forgiveness is not a one and done thing. Okay. It's not a emotionally microwave instant popcorn, thing. Certainly the hardest apology to accept is from the person who never offers an apology. And so it's not really about them. Forgiveness is not about going back and making things right. It's not about crossing T's and dotting I's and making sure that everything's set in place historically. What's happened in the past, if we are obsessed with that alone, it will continue to stand in the way of our future. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about freedom for myself. That is it. And as long as I think that I have to somehow go back and recreate history or correct it or fix it, then I am not living forward into life in a way that's best and useful for me. Notice that I never use the word happiness.
That's true.
Happiness is something that we think we can buy our way into, or we can drink our way into, or experience our way into.
Yeah.
I think the operative word here is freedom. Yeah. Freedom to be happy. Freedom to be joyous. And that freedom is not circumstantial. And so for the sake of your viewers and listeners, the email I sent was to my father, where I was basically calling him out and asking him to atone for the damage he did to my sister and my mother and to me. And he never responded. And much of my journey was this journey over years of me coming to terms with the total abandonment of that. that he would never play a part in giving me the freedom that my soul longed to know.
Yeah.
But God came through, and I got the freedom anyway.
I think you just hit on something that is so relevant when we have this false sense of what it's going to look like. What is it going to look like to have our stories redeemed, restored, and all of those wonderful words that we use to describe our journey. And you said, it gives me the freedom to be happy. And I think a lot of times we think that, if I just have forgiveness from this person, and if I can just have this fixed here, I will be happy. And that was just a huge nugget of wisdom that you gave us, from your own life today, that does not equate. That's not a guarantee.
If there's anything, if only this or that, then that stands in the way of happiness.
Happiness. Yeah.
When we come to accept things just the way we are, and just things just the way they are, that's when we could move forward and let the dust of the past settle, and we move on. That's the doorway of happiness.
In closing, I was going to ask you, because you have an anniversary coming up of your sobriety in November, and what would you say to anybody that is just starting their recovery journey from addiction, of any sort of addiction? And we both know addictions come in all sizes, shapes, and forms, and it's not a respecter of persons. But what are some disciplines that you have embraced over the years that have kept you sober, and that you would say these are vital to anybody's sobriety? What would you share?
Well, first and foremost, being connected with other people who are on the same recovery journey. Your lives don't have, you don't have to have that much in common, except the need and the interest to move forward in your sobriety for a particular addiction. And my introduction to the 12-step programs changed my life. And I don't think I would be free to know and appreciate and live within the grandeur of God's love and know Jesus the way I know Jesus without the 12-step programs and the people of the 12-step programs. I think what these programs are so famous for is that they're constantly promoting honest connection between people. The whole world does not need to know all of our, stuff. That's not the point. It's a few people, a few trusted people who help us, and then we help others. So it's certainly it's a shared journey. And I think having those connections on a daily basis, whether it's going to the meetings in person, many of the meetings are available online and Zoom, telephone calls, but those have always been essential for me. And as I come up on my sobriety birth date on November 19th, my sobriety date is November 19th, 1999. So I'm looking forward to 24 years.
Yay!
Assuming I don't go out and do something stupid, which I don't think I will. I don't plan on it. I don't have any interest. But I do know this, is that every day I'm having important conversations with at least one other person about our recovery journeys. And so I'm going to continue that for the rest of my life.
So there you have it in a nutshell. Connection. Not addiction. Yes.
Yeah.
And I believe that was one of your definitions of community was that of connection with one other person with a common goal.
Right.
And, if I remember correctly from a few years back. Thank you again, David, for joining us again today.
You're
And
welcome.
I just want to share again to my audience that if you have not read or listened to David Zailer's Death of a Fisherman, it's on family, faith, and forgiveness. It is available on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, printed edition, and also Audible. And so again, thank you so much, David. You've been such a gracious guest and very patient with me, and I appreciate it so very kindly. And blessings to you for the remainder of the day. And it'll be exciting to see how God continues to use your story. So
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Martha.
You're welcome. One more thing. I know that Operation Integrity has a lot of articles and things that can be used for recovery. Would you mind sharing with our audience two important things: how they can donate to the continued work of Operation Integrity if they would so desire, and also those resources? What is a good website for you?
OperationIntegrity.org.
OperationIntegrity.org.
www.operationintegrity.org.
Okay.
We've got lots of free information there, links to the books, links to the YouTube videos. If someone is so inclined, there's a donate button. Of course, I thank you in advance for anyone who is feeling led to help out. But it's operationintegrity.org.
All right, great. And are you available for speaking engagements currently, or are you not speaking right now?
You know what? They can reach out to the website.
Okay.
I am booking some things here and there, and most people who know me know that I'm not a workaholic when it comes to traveling and speaking, but I love it. I absolutely love the communication part. So they can reach out via email, and I'll be in touch.
Absolutely wonderful. And again, thank you, David. And to my viewers and listeners, this concludes this edition of Healing Moments with Martha. And the links will be available on YouTube and Spotify. And thank you again so much for tuning in. Until next time.
Thank you.